Thank you for joining me today at A Touch of Blue Studio with Drawing with Grandma. Welcome back to my studio for another demonstration in drawing and painting. As you can see, I love this fox. I did a sketch last week and then a small oil painting in lesson 27 that you can view. And now I want to study him with ink wash. Ink wash is done with Indian ink that is diluted with water. It is much like watercolor, but right now I'm just going to focus on using black ink. So this fox I have placed on an illustration board, and as you can see, I've done the study of a hawk on the left there that is drying. And so while those two studies are drying, I'm going to go ahead with a third one. This little owl is looking to the left, and right now I wanted to shape his body with a very light faded wash, and I can develop the lighter values by diluting with a lot of water and just use a larger brush to create the shape of his body and that center line where his eyes and bridge of the nose will intersect. So as the wash dries a little bit, I'm going to just focus on the darker areas with a little bit more ink and develop the values and the patterns on his feathers, trying to get that illusion of the form of his head, the position of his head and where he's looking, and then place the eyes and the beak correctly. Once I do that, it should be a lot simpler to develop the rest of him. I want to be careful to keep any white highlights clear of ink. If I were painting this in oil, it wouldn't matter as much because I can lay paint on top. But with watercolor and ink wash, you want the paper to be the lightest value, so you want to leave it untouched with the medium. So I want to leave pure white areas that will remain as the highlights and be the lightest values. He has a beautiful framed face with real feathery light hairs that dress him up very nicely. This will take a lot of layers in order to get the darker values because some of those patterns are very black. So I want to gradually get there. And if I do too many layers at one time, it just stays too wet and spreads the ink out and lightens it up. So sometimes it's necessary to wait a while and then come back. I want to find those eyes and be sure to leave little highlights, but also to shape them and put them in the crevice of that mask looking area. There's a lot of pattern on his little body. So I want to create symmetry because the patterns on him look the same on both sides. There's a lot of similarities to his design. So I want to make sure that I match that up as I go darker and deepen the tones. It's really fun to draw with a brush. With ink wash, I don't do any pencil ahead of time. It's all drawing with the brush and developing the values and highlights and darks and shadows with the various tones, like I would with a pencil. But it also trains your eye to see and to not have the temptation of an eraser, but just to gain control and confidence. And if you make mistakes, that's okay. With watercolor, though, I do like using pencil, but with ink, I don't want that to show up. I want it all to be these beautiful washes of faded black and gray and deep values that just make it so interesting and contrasted. I'm just going to sneak a little branch here. It's going to be tucked in there, and I'll wait till it dries and then I'll do a little bit of texture on that. I thought it would be fun also to do another leaf like we did a few weeks ago with watercolor, and this one I'm just going to wash on the outside of this leaf that I found outside, and make a little mono print with it. And I did make a mess, but that's okay. These are studies and it's just fun practice. So now I'm going to wash in around it so that the shape of the leaf is a little bit easier to see. And then I will start developing the form of the leaf. Doing a little bit of outlining, but mostly it's going to be just a darker value. Here we go. Some of those veins will need to be there and give the leaf some structure. And maybe we'll add a little bit of color with watercolor. I do have sepia ink, but I think I will use 2 colors actually of the sepia and the yellow ochre inks. So I will finish the values on the shadows, and then we'll begin a wash over this leaf. So you can see the leaf on the right there. It's pretty dark. I don't think I'll go as dark as it is. I really want to study the shape and some of the undertones that are there, and not really get it exactly like that. It's just fun practice. So if you have time, get your sketchbook, find a beautiful leaf, lay it down on your watercolor paper or your sketchbook, wash a beautiful blue or black or violet behind, and then begin a nice wash with yellow ochre or brown. And be sure to leave some of the white of the paper showing so that the highlights will be revealed, and you'll have that natural quality of watercolor and ink. You can see in the fox up above that a lot of the paper has just been left untouched, and that is just the white of the paper that becomes the highlights and the lightest values. So I got the yellow ochre washed in, and now I'm going to do a sepia ink and just let it fade right into those other colors. It's okay if it gets off the edges into the black ink. It's just a fun study. I'm tempted to take these colors right up into that fox and into the bird, but I think I will let them stay as black and white ink washes at this point. So there's a lot you could do with this. You could take it a lot further with other colors of ink or watercolor or color pencil, but I just want to leave it as a quick little ink wash study and let it be what it is. I want to fill this board with a lot of ink wash studies, so look for it in later lessons, and it'll be fun to see it develop gradually. Thank you for joining me today at A Touch of Blue Studio with Drawing and Painting with Grandma.